Hello, everyone. I'm Gregory Joseph, Communications Director here at American Promise. Today, we're going to watch a compelling short video by award-winning filmmaker Noah Hutton. The video explains how money in politics has caused the American people to fall into a spiral of silence and powerlessness when it comes to exercising our political power. After the video concludes, we'll sit down with the filmmaker Noah Hutton for a few questions. And now, the spiral of silence.
In 1974, the political scientist Elizabeth Noel Newman introduced a theory that individuals, fearing isolation, continuously monitor their environments to see whether their beliefs line up with the majority opinion. When they feel like the popular opinion has shifted away from their own, they become afraid to speak their minds, pulling them deeper and deeper down a dark spiral that makes them less likely to think their own voice matters. Noel Newman called this phenomenon the spiral of silence. And that's because when you're in the spiral, all you can hear are the loudest voices in the room. You never know that 98% of Americans agree on something that, if we spoke out about and voted on, would transform our country and unwind this spiral. That something that 98% of people agree on is that big money in politics is poison. In the state and local elections where big money floods the system, people feel like their individual donations don't make a difference. The more we sense the tidal waves of money pouring into the waters around us, the weaker our individual voices feel. And despite momentary bursts of political energy, we soon find ourselves back in a spiral of silence. We have got to stop the unlimited spending of corporations in our political system, or we, the people, is no stronger than we, the special interest. Now listen, winning a constitutional amendment is hard. It's supposed to be. But if we all put a little extra on our ordinary, extraordinary things can happen. The spiral could end in 10 years from now, 50 years from now, or it could end now. Go to AmericanPromise.net to join the fight against big money in politics, and together we can reclaim our voices and take back our political system.
Noah Hutton is a writer and director of documentary narrative films. He was nominated for the 2021 Independent Spirit Award for Best Screenplay for Lapsus, a sci-fi feature he wrote, directed, scored, and edited, which premiered in the narrative feature competition at South by Southwest 2020 and was acquired by Film Movement for theatrical release in 2021. In 2020, he completed In Silico, a 10-year documentary beginning in 2009 and supported by the Sandbox Films and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation about a 10-year project to simulate the human brain on supercomputers. He previously directed the documentary features Deep Time and Crude Independence. Please welcome Noah Hutton. Noah, welcome to the American Promise world premiere of your short film, Spiral of Silence.
Thank you, Gregory. I'm very excited to be here.
Noah, you've been involved with this issue for quite some time. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what gave you the inspiration for this project.
Well, yes, as you said, I've been involved in doing videos for various political campaigns for years now, and along the way, I came across, in doing some research, I came across this concept of the spiral of silence, which goes back to the 70s. A German scientist named Elizabeth Noel Newman coined the term, and I just thought that when I first read about it, and it's explained briefly in the video, I thought that it just remains so pertinent to stuff we've seen in recent years, going back to 2016 election, and certainly continuing and escalating, really ever since Citizens United, more and more pertinent, I believe. And that is just the idea that even in this world where we have the internet and there's this illusion that we have such a voice as individuals, there is maybe still a silencing effect going on because of the sort of vast consensus that's driven part and parcel by the interests of big donors in the room. So even though we feel like we have individual voices and platforms, perhaps, the actual vast narrative about things we can change, the possibilities in front of us, the actual power we have as individuals to vote for change, a lot of that is just shaped by huge money interests that, we are a little are dark. We don't really know exactly who they are, yet somehow they sort of seep into our consciousness and perhaps make us feel like we don't have that much of a voice. And so I thought the spiral of silence, for people to sort of, sometimes it takes naming the thing to understand, what it is, and then to work, and then to take action because of it. So this video, I hope, names the thing, perhaps a phenomenon that people feel like applies to our world. And then I think the second half of it hopefully points towards something that we could do to break the spiral.
You mentioned that you have been making videos for on a lot of different issues for a lot of different organizations. Where did your political awakening kind of come from? Where did you find this beauty mix between filmmaking and driving your political issues through the vehicle of film?
It really got started for me on a local basis. I live in upstate New York, and Zephyr Teachout was running, for Congress a number of years ago, and that was the first campaign I got started on, doing videos for Zephyr. And it was really because I wanted to see a change in Congress in my district, and so I thought, what can I do locally with the resources I have, and I offered myself as a filmmaker to Zephyr. But I also come from a documentary film background, and although the documentaries I've made aren't necessarily for a politician or a political campaign, I tried to bring the same sort of like storytelling ethos to Zephyr's campaign, to not necessarily make ads that feel very slick and polished, but we were making more just sort of like human issue pieces that talked about things going on in upstate New York. And so I really enjoyed that process, because it felt like I could bring a tool I had developed to something I cared about locally as a citizen in my community.
Yeah, and you did it perfectly with Spiral of Silence, which really just brings this issue of big money to, and really boils it down and drills it down into what is the problem, what is wrong, and some solutions to how to fix it. And you present it in a manner that is digestible to even a layperson who's coming to this issue for the first time. We're really very interested in trying to reach as many Americans as possible at American Promise, but there's a segment of Americans that we're really trying to also reach a little bit more diligently than everyone else, and that's a younger generation. Would you have any sense on how does the issue of money in politics gets translated to a younger generation? How, as a storyteller, how do you communicate this issue? It's a very complex issue, and not everybody's an expert. But how do you communicate this through film or through whatever medium that you feel is most impactful?
Well, something we tried to put in the Spiral of Silence short film here is that this idea that I think is very powerful, and I think it would be very powerful for young people to really understand this, is that in local elections and in any kind of political campaign where there's the most big money pouring in, people's individual contributions, their donations to candidates goes down. So I think when people see that, I don't know why that pertains necessarily to young people, but I feel like the idea of that is so crystal clear. It's like when you see the economics of that, just that the more big money you have pouring into local races, the shrinking effect of people's individual contributions. When you're a young person, in my 20s, like when I started to get politically aware and contribute a little bit of money to different politicians here or there, $20 there, whatever, those small contributions from younger people are often their first way that they start to feel involved in a campaign, besides maybe volunteering and canvassing. And just to understand that those small contributions are kind of what's at stake here, that those tend to shrink when young people feel, and anybody feels, the effect of big money. I think that's very dramatic to realize that, and to see those graphs, about local elections. And anybody, I think, would want to change that. If you want to have a voice in this country, you'd want to see people, feel like their contributions make a difference, even when they're tossing in $20. So I think that ultimately, getting money out of politics it's kind of like the gateway drug to whatever you want to change about the country. And I don't mean to, I mean, like, that's like, that's how I feel about it. It's like anything you want to do, no matter your political leanings, anything you want to see change, this is sort of like the dam. It's the roadblock. It has to be changed first. And I think if young people especially, would understand that as like maybe a first thing to look at, like we got to get rid of this, and then we can do, anything else you want to work on. It has to come after this.
It is absolutely right. It is the gateway drug of the systemic problems that face America. I often call it money in politics is the foundation, and everything else that's built on the rotten foundation can't stand. You have to fix the foundation so everything else above it can stand tall. So if you're worried about your student loans being too big to repay, therefore you can't go get that sociologist or social worker degree, we got to go in for the corporate bucks. Realize that if we actually reform our campaign finance system and get big money out of politics, well, the big banks wouldn't have such a stranglehold on your college education and financing it. So yeah, that's another little thing to look at, young people, while you're looking for an issue to put your passion into. No, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to put on your dreaming hat and think of something that if you woke up tomorrow and money in politics wasn't an issue, and any issue could be addressed honestly by the American people and their elected officials without having to worry about money's big size influence coming here and messing it all up, what would you focus on? What would be the first thing on the Noah Hutton agenda to make to change America?
Well, I just feel like healthcare, that's been so important to me as a freelancer, as an independent contractor for so many years. That was often, it was realizing the sort of impasse that we were at with single payer healthcare in this country that I got me politically active and wanting to work on the Zephyr campaign originally. And certainly I see it as a big money issue. And if we could loosen that stranglehold a little bit, and as you say, clear up that rotten foundation, I believe we could join the rest of the world by providing healthcare as a human right to people. So that's and I think young people would care about that too. That's coming off of their parents' healthcare. It's like a lot of people who strike out as freelancers or don't have a full-time job and they're piecing it together in the gig economy, let's say, that's a huge issue for people. And so that would be first on my list.
It's a very good list. I mean, coming off of a global pandemic, I think everyone's really concerned about what the future of healthcare looks like and health insurance, so forth. So kudos there. Let's hope that you can wake up tomorrow and big money will be gone from politics. And it seems like we have a lot of reason to thank Zephyr Teachout, but for getting you politically involved is definitely another one of her accolades. So congratulations, Ms. Teachout, for bringing us Noah. Noah, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're busy. I know that you also had a new film that was released just a few weeks ago. You want to talk about your actual full-length movie for a little bit?
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. I just mentioned the gig economy, and the film I made happens to deal with. It's a sci-fi film about a strange new corner of the gig economy that has to do with quantum computing, and the film is called Lapsus, and it's available on iTunes, cable providers, VOD. People can check it out, and it's sort of set in like a near future parallel present, and it imagines this new kind of like a gig economy that's sprouted up in the forest, people having to pull cable over miles of forest land and competing against automated robots that are trying to steal the routes from them. So that's the film. It's called Lapsus. People should check it out.
Well, maybe one day we'll have a whole interview about Lapsus as well, as Spiral of Silence. Noah Hutton, thank you so much. You can check out Lapsus, as he said, on iTunes and various cable providers. Noah Hutton, filmmaker extraordinaire, Spiral of Silence, you will be able to see on the American Promise YouTube channel and on our website as well at americanpromise.net. Thank you, Noah.
Thank you so much, Gregory. Thank you, everybody.
For those who may be just joining us, I'm going to play the video back again. So here, once again, is Spiral of Silence.
In 1974, the political scientist Elizabeth Noel Newman introduced a theory that individuals, fearing isolation, continuously monitor their environments to see whether their beliefs line up with the majority opinion. When they feel like the popular opinion has shifted away from their own, they become afraid to speak their minds, pulling them deeper and deeper down a dark spiral that makes them less likely to think their own voice matters. Noel Newman called this phenomenon the spiral of silence. And that's because when you're in the spiral, all you can hear are the loudest voices in the room. You never know that 98% of Americans agree on something that, if we spoke out about and voted on, would transform our country and unwind this spiral. That something that 98% of people agree on is that big money in politics is poison. In the state and local elections where big money floods the system, people feel like their individual donations don't make a difference. The more we sense the tidal waves of money pouring into the waters around us, the weaker our individual voices feel. And despite momentary bursts of political energy, we soon find ourselves back in a spiral of silence. We have got to stop the unlimited spending of corporations in our political system, or we the people is no stronger than we the special interest. Now listen, winning a constitutional amendment is hard. It's supposed to be. But if we all put a little extra on our ordinary, extraordinary things can happen. The spiral could end in 10 years from now, 50 years from now, or it could end now. Go to AmericanPromise.net to join the fight against big money in politics, and together we can reclaim our voices and take back our political system.
Thank you, Noah, for that great conversation and those great insights into this video. And thanks to everyone for attending today. You can watch and share the Spiral of Silence video on the American Promise YouTube page. And to learn more about the movement to end unlimited political spending and how you can take action to advance the 28th Amendment, please go to AmericanPromise.net. Thank you. And for American Promise, I'm Gregory Joseph.